Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Mike and David and Zach. How you guys doing?
I would be doing a whole heck of a lot better if these fellas at EA could figure out how to properly matchmake. That would be really great. I would really appreciate that. Yeah.
Is your skill rating 0 too?
My skill rating is 0, despite I had one game today where it was 3-on-5. I was on for the entire game. The game started 3-on-5. I had 40 kills and 120,000 siege damage, and we almost won. And I was just, it was brutal. It was brutal. I literally would fly out of the hangar in a TIE bomber, wipe their team, destroy their Corvette, move on to their ships, and pray my two wingmen only died a couple times, so I had enough time to make a bobbing run or two. Yeah, it was bad.
The matchmaking is totally messed up. You can, it'll even say, if someone leaves from your team, it'll even be players have abandoned the game. This match will not be scored. It is safe to leave. And then you leave, and then you try and do a new match, and it's you need to rejoin your match to avoid an MMR penalty. And I'm
yeah, that happened to me on the first or second day where somebody left my game, and it was oh, it's safe to leave, and I was all right, well, this game doesn't get scored anymore, so screw it, I'm out. And then it was you lose 50% of your MMR for being a leaver, and I was okay. Yeah, not optimal.
I was gonna say your experience of not quite carrying hard enough was basically a simile for Luke Skywalker. He is but one model. He cannot carry the game by himself usually.
Hard disagree. Hot take. Operative Luke can carry many a game on his shoulders alone. I've seen it happen.
Breakthrough.
Yes. You know what? There's a lot of things that Mike and I don't get, we'll agree on, but there are a lot of hot takes that Mike will bring, and I will agree with those, and this is one of them.
Why take Operative Luke when you can take 2 units of Mandalorian Resistance?
Because lightsaber, baby.
Yeah, also Jedi mind trick, force push. Luke's command cards, which are all stellar. Luke's worst command card is a lot of other characters' best command card.
What is Luke's worst command card?
That's what I'm saying. You're oh, what's Luke's worst command card? You really got to think hard about it.
I totally don't know if I agree with that though. That is a game-winning game. I'm a game-winning card. It is a card that you'll use. I talked about this earlier in the Discord today. It is a card that you will use only one in 6 games. But that game that you use it in, with the text on the card, I mean, the game that you use it in, using that text on that card, will win you the game. I've won games while playing I Am a Jedi. I turned 6, trained in your Jedi arts, Grievous, on key positions, going towards the center KP, and I went for, instead of slashing something with Luke, I went for a force push, disengage, double move to get near Grievous, to then shut him down with I Am a Jedi while being safe in melee with something else. But that goes with the saying that, yeah, again, it might be his worst card, but I want to put that in quotes because it's still a really freaking good card. That's the thing that, David, you brought up this point, and I'm going to go off the deep end before we even start this podcast, I guess. But there's always that conversation of, well, Luke is 200 points, but I can actually have 2 sets of Mandalorians or 4 sets of Rebel Troopers or 2 sets of Tauntauns. There's always this conversation of that. There are intangibles that come with Luke Skywalker that you cannot put into points. I can't stress that enough. Whether it's force push, yeah, that costs points, I get that, but it's an intangible. Jedi mind trick, like Mike alluded to, Jedi mind trick with Master of the Force is a drug. If you haven't done it, it is a drug, and it feels dirty when you do it. When you're just continually putting 2 suppression down, last firsting with suppression on something important, it is ridiculous. And the reason why that's so good on Op Luke, right, is that he has disengage. So what I mean by that is you don't always have to use force push. So that's why Jedi Mind Trick is so good on Operative Luke. But again, the intangibles of the command cards, 6 good command cards. You got Jedi Mind Trick, Force Push, all these things. Tenacity makes him an 8 dice pool. That's like, he's like one of the one things that can like wipe an 8-man B1 squad, like effectively wipe an 8-man B1 squad, which is not an easy thing to do. Okay. No. Like you ever see like an 8-man B1 squad and say, I'm going to one-shot that squad? It's like very rare kind of situation.
I don't know. Don't play clones enough, but
well, hold on. Besides from that, yes, like I understand big dice pools and ton of aims.
Piss me off.
And I get that.
Yeah,
but
you know.
I'm talking about a one model. Like think about what Luke can do as one model. Anyways, you sent me off that path. Just wanted to get that off my chest.
So
yes, he costs a lot of points.
I'm going to steer you farther down that path as long as we're here.
Yes.
It's interesting because I actually think Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke on paper look super similar. And I'm really glad you brought up the intangibles because I think a lot of it has to do with what is like kind of folded around them, right? Like Luke works really well because you also can like get him in a 10 or 11 activation army. It's very difficult to do that with Kenobi and have it be effective. The one wound is also like a huge, like on paper, you're like, it's just one wound. It's not a big deal. The amount of times that Luke is like old Luke or Kenobi dies like exactly and like one wound would have saved you is, I don't know. I find that like the threshold between 6 and 7 is very different.
Yeah, I agree. No, I totally agree. Like, I literally had a game probably like a month ago. I was like, he's got one wound left. I got a dodge token coming to me. Maybe I survive. Maybe I don't. I rolled exactly. I took 3 hits. I rolled 2 saves and took the 1 wound. Had I had 7 with Operative Luke, I would have been alive and I would have easily won the game. Now, I almost won the game still with losing Luke in that unopportune situation. But again, that extra 1 hit point might sound crazy, like you said, but it's like, it's a lot. I don't know how to explain it. It just feels like it's a lot different.
I don't have the Photoshop skills to make this happen. Okay. But I need someone out there, a listener perhaps, to make a movie poster parody of The Incredibles, except it's The Intangibles with Obi-Wan, Operative Luke, Emperor Palpatine, and Count Dooku on it. Because like all the 200-point voice users have the same problem.
Genius.
Do they have the same problem though?
Well, there's an airspeed or 2 in there somewhere.
Well, I just like...
Oh, hang on. We are not comparing any of those 4 to an
the intangibles. But the intangibles, it's a speed... It can kill sniper strikes. Nah, never mind.
I just like...
Different kind of intangibles.
Yeah,
most of the units you quoted on that list are competitively viable and or have taken down major tournaments.
Oh, that is true.
Palpatine has won 2 of the last 3 major tournaments in the US.
Let's not forget. Tauntauns, 0. Actually, that's not true. There was 1 winner.
That's not true. One of the other 3 was Tauntauns.
Well, no. 1 was in Australia. Was Tauntauns.
Okay, so 2 then.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in the US.
One?
Yeah, Riha with
Riha.
Tauntauns.
Oh, yeah. Okay, gotcha. That's right. I forgot.
Yeah,
so anyways,
2
Kyle.
2 Tauntauns, 2 Palpatine. There you go.
There you go.
So anyways, Kyle, how about that housekeeping?
Yeah, let's hit the housekeeping. Yeah, so we have some new mats up for pre-order on the site, thefifthtrooper.com/shop. Go check them out for pre-order. We have some new ones that have basically like hidden sizes on them. So there's that weird 40K size that's like, I don't know, 44 by 56 or something ridiculous like that. Something that you can't even make sidebars for. But on this new mat that we have, it is outlined basically in like it's hard to describe without having the mat physically in front of you, but it's essentially outlined as part of the terrain, if that makes sense. Like there's like roads and stuff.
The pattern indicates where the edges would be if it was a 44 by 60, for example. It's
not like a big obnoxious, blue box or anything. It's sort of worked into how the mat looks.
Yeah.
And then there's also, 6x3, 6x4, 3x3. There's hidden markers for where like your intercept points would be on a Legion table. So stuff like that. Yeah, go check them out. thefifthtrooper.com/shop. Jay and Evan are also doing a King of the Hill battle tomorrow.
Yeah, they are. Whoa.
Actually, it'll be today when you're listening to this cast, right? Tuesday night?
Yes, it will be Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, live streamed on our Fifth Trooper YouTube channel. So we put out a sweet teaser for it yesterday. Feel free to check that out. So that was fun to record.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start calling you Jerry Lawler.
I don't even know who that is. So this is the thing, right? Like I was like, Jay, we should do like a WWE like intro thing for this thing. And he was like, yeah, that sounds great. How do you want to do it? And I was like, I don't know. I've never actually seen it. So they kind of gave all the input and stuff for that. And so I assume that's who the host is.
He was one of the hosts. Yeah, there was Jerry the King Lawler and JR. Oh man, I'm blanking on some other names, but yeah, those are the two main ones that you would see. I think there was Eric Cole or something, or Mike Cole maybe. But it was just funny. Like I had no idea that this was in the works. So like I see this come up and I'm like, oh, King of Hill. I always watch our videos and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden you're there and I'm just like, what is going on here? And Mike didn't even mention this. Like, and next thing you know, Jay's on with the sunglasses doing this like macho man, like Hulk Hogan type thing. I don't know which one. I think he was kind of trying to do Hulk, but he kind of was coming across as Macho Man. So I think it was a bit of both mixed in the two.
People.
I mean,
I know kind of mashed them together.
In production, there was much talk of Macho Man or whatever his name is. So
Randy Savage.
Randy Savage.
Step into a Slim Jim, Mike. Come on.
Exactly.
Oh, it's that dude. Okay, all right.
Yes.
I know that. That I know. I've seen those commercials.
It was that guy.
I love Slim Jims. Slim Jims are great.
Brought to you by Slim Jim.
Right? We've got a new sponsor.
Right.
But yeah, so filming that was cool. I hope everybody enjoys it. I think they're going to do a little something tonight too, centered around that. So we definitely had a little bit more editing that we didn't show yesterday. So
I need me a pair of those American flag sunglasses that Jay was wearing.
Fantastic.
So,
those video alone worth it.
Do you think you can actually see out of those?
Does it matter?
That's fair. I mean, I'm just imagining like the people that wear those are also like on a motorcycle or something, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be important in that situation.
I mean, if you're wearing those, people will get out of your way anyway, so this is not a problem.
Sun never sets, man. Sun never sets.
The traffic just parts before you.
Exactly.
All right, so that should be fun. Evan is playing a Separatist list with Grievous, Cad Bane, a bunch of B1s, and an AAT tank. Really can't go wrong with an AAT, in my opinion.
No, I think it's going to be. I mean, he's got a pretty good list. I do think that he might have some order control issues. We'll see how that plays out. Having three important pieces, and Cad, Grievous, and the AAT don't care a ton when they go, but Cad really cares a lot. So.
They just need to really play into it, and just like Dooku needs to be like Ric Flair, Cad Bane basically needs to be Gold Dust, because Gold Dust was painted gold. So, but since Cad Bane's blue, so I guess he can just be Blue Dust. The AAT can be Rashiki. I guess I don't know. I'm trying to think of other names that could go with that. The B1s are just basically the guys that you throw into the ring that nobody cares about when it's what's that one where everyone Royal Rumble? You throw a bunch of like all the important guys come out last, so all those like like chess pieces, like the pawns go out first. You throw them into the ring, you throw them out. Nobody cares about the B1s, and Jay's running triple bikes. I don't know how that plays into WWE. So I guess Veers is like one of those wrestlers that hung around for like the longest time, but nobody cared about, or they liked him at first, and then like he kind of became obscure. So I guess I don't know. Maybe you can go with like that's like the John Cena or something like that. Everyone liked him, and now he's doing movies. Now nobody really cares about him, and he kind of goes off to the distance. So I guess that's John Cena and triple bikes.
No, and triple bikes is Triple H.
Oh, there you go, Triple H, perfect.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I actually think as long as we're asking people in the community to like make stuff for us, yo, first person to paint Veers with American goggles, like American flag goggles for Jay, thumbs up. All about it. Let's see your pictures on Facebook. I'm sure somebody can do it. It's gonna be some fine detail work required for that, but it would be sweet.
Some green stuff, like Macho Man style hair coming out from under the helmet there. Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's move on to one of our main topics.
Get ready for advanced tactics.
We're going to talk about Mandalorians today. So, David, you just wrote an article on Mandalorians. This will be kind of our Mandalorian 101 discussion. So, do you want to walk through their unit card real quick?
Sure. So, Mandos are a new special forces unit for the Rebel Alliance. So we had the Commandos, we got Wookiees, we had Pathfinders, and now we have Mandalorian Resistance, which are in a format unknown to the Rebel Alliance because they're a unit in the Rebel faction that is not a hero or an operative that has a red die with a surge to defense for their defenses. They also have surge to hit, which is awesome. A lot of Rebel units have surge to hit. 1 wound each. For the generic resistance, 2 courage. It's about, kind of what you'd expect for a special forces unit. They're range 2, sad face. But the caveat there is that they have speed 3 and jump 2. So they are very fast. They are able to ignore height 2 terrain. They also have impervious, like Sabine would have, and nimble, like Sabine would have. So they're basically a unit version of Sabine Wren, which is really sick. Like if you already could take like 1 Sabine Wren, now you have the chance to take like 3 like pseudo Sabine Wrens in your army, because they're kind of like her, but they're not quite like her, because they have 4 models apiece if you take the generic kind. But then there's this other mode for them. They're supposed to be analogous to the Inferno Squad /ISF. So this is Mandalorian Resistance / Clan Ren, where you can take Ursa and Tristan as their heavy weapons in that squad, as well as a generic 2 health Mandalorian kind of to sort of round out the squad. So they also get this special keyword called retinue. So as long as they hang out next to Sabine, they get this awesome free token. It doesn't matter if they have line of sight to her or not. They just need to hang near her and they'll get the token from her, and it can be an aim or a dodge. And that's really important because there's a lot of keywords on this unit that need tokens to fire. So like a nimble needs a dodge token, or Tristan as a heavy weapon who has, lethal needs an aim token for lethal. And then for the generic unit, the Biscad Duelist, which is this like generic heavy weapon, it's a swordsman basically. He'll get 2 red in melee. He can of course shoot the base weapon as well, a base pistol. But he gets this really cool keyword called Duelist, which lets you, when you spend an aim token for the normal effect during melee attack, you gain Pierce 1, and if you spend a dodge token in melee while defending, you can get immune Pierce, which is really sick if you're in melee. I think in the article I refer to them as Diet Jedi. That's kind of what they are. As long as they have tokens, they have like similar stats and abilities to Jedi, and you can take multiples in your list. And so people have been rocking the Mandalorian skew a little bit online, sort of experimenting with it. I haven't made that commitment. I own 2 boxes, but I haven't gone the full hog to get a 3rd box. And then I have to mention one other thing. You know how Boba has the Jetpack Rocket? Well, now you have Jetpack Rockets as a unit upgrade. Jetpack Rockets can be equipped to any style of these guys as an armament. And it is range 3 to 4. It has an X, which means it discards after 1 use. Single red die per mini. So on the full generics, you'll get 4 red dice at range 4. Blast, which means it ignores cover. So it's like Leia bombardment, because Leia has sharpshooter 2. It has an equivalent effect to blast, essentially. And then it has impact 1. So for every copy of the rocket, you'll gain a point of impact. So this is like, impact 4 if you shoot it at a tank. So it's pretty nasty. And you can take a copy of this on each of your Mandos. So one of the first like things that folks hit on when they saw this card is like, wow, if I take Leia and I take 3 of these things, I could get some huge turn 1 barrage without much effort, considering that these troops have speed 3. It's supremely easy to get in range 4 or something on the first turn. And then you add like recon intel to that. Right. And so like one of the big things is like, you know, I'm going to go with my recon intel speed 1, jump up with my speed 3, offensive push, and then shoot this red dice with an aim, kind of like tauntauns, to like make my chance of getting 4 hits on whatever target I'm shooting some high percentage, like 90 plus, I think, with one aim. I think it's only like 75 without, which is why the aim makes it better. But the point is that you have some huge quantity of reds that can subvert cover now on the first turn. And it actually is kind of it's an alpha strike. It's a rebel alpha strike, a legitimate one, because of the cover denial.
Yeah, I actually almost think I don't want to say the words auto include because it's hard to say that in this game. But whenever I'm building them, I feel like they're an auto include for, I think, different reasons than what might have already been stated. And what I mean by that is, yeah, you get the alpha strike. Yes, it's quality dice. But what you're also doing is forcing your opponent to actually have to think about them and react to them. So let's say I put Mandalorians on the table and I don't have rockets. They can now kind of play around the fact that I don't have them. But if I have them, they now have to make every decision that they make revolve around the fact that they know that I have them. We talked about intangibles earlier with Luke Skywalker. That's an intangible from the Mandalorians that I think is something that might get overlooked. Like everything gets put to the points where it's like, all right, it's 8 points, it's good dice, it's an alpha strike. I get it. But the intangible of it is that your opponent has to think about it and they have to, react to that, which is super important in this game, I think. At least in my mind, like whenever I'm playing a game, whatever is across from the table is important to how I'm playing on my side of the table. And seeing those rockets on one side or not is just a completely different game, in my opinion.
What do you think of the Tristan combo with the rockets?
Oh, you mean the oh yeah, we forgot to mention that. So the other half of the Jetpack Rockets conversation is Tristan as the heavy weapon has a range of 3, but Mandos have a base range of 2. So the rockets kind of bump the range of the rest of the squad, and they also give the attack pool blast. So you end up in this place where you're shooting with Tristan, and then you're shooting with the rest of the squad's rockets. So you get 3 red from the squad, 2 black from Tristan, and this attack pool has blast, lethal, suppressive, and if you're shooting a vehicle, impact 3, or an armored unit like a B2, something like that. You get all those keywords together. It's really nasty.
Let's get real here.
Attached.
It's 8 points to have Boba's card, best command card, like by a lot.
Yeah, it's legit.
I think the conversation gets a little interesting when you start talking about Clan Ren, and I can understand why folks might not want to spend the 8 points on the rockets on Clan Ren because it's only a 3 model squad, and I get that. But if you combine the rockets, if you have the token generation that you need, or you get the Mandalorians into a position where they're fine. Let's say it's with Sabine, you have Clan Ren, which is who you're mostly going to run it with, right? Mm-hmm. And you take an aim. You now have an aim that you can use for Ursa's long shot, which you were mentioning. And yeah, you might probably end up losing out on Tristan's suppressive. I mean, not lethal, because you might not be able to find a second aim. But like you're still throwing quality dice. Like you throw the 1 red with the generic model in Clan Ren. You throw Tristan's double black suppressive, and then Ursa throws a rainbow, if I'm not mistaken. She throws a black, a white, and a red. So you're throwing 3 red, 1 white, 2 black, suppressive at range 3 with blast. Like that is a quality dice pool. Yeah. yeah, I get that 8 points seems like a lot for quote unquote 1 red. I mean, there's going to be a situation when you throw 3 red at something too, right? There's always going to be that thing. But I'm just saying, if you have that position where you can put all 3 of those weapons combined, it's a really quality dice pool when you surge to hit. If you can get a second aim, it's even better. But typically, you don't want your Mandalorians in a position where they're at range 3 or something and take the aim action and then shoot, because then they're stuck in that position, which we'll get to with strategies later on. But I just wanted to say, like, the combination with the rockets, with both Tristan and Ursa, while it might not seem ideal to just throw the 1 red, it's still okay because, like, it's a good dice pool.
I think you can have, that's a debate, right? Because you can say, do I take this? Do I pay 8 for the possibility of that blast attack, or do I take a bid? Because I think that's where you're like writing is like, because Mandos are also really good at specific objectives, which we'll get to in a minute here. But
I could see a case for just also taking no rockets and going and spending an extra 2 points for HQ uplink.
Certainly.
Like, there's a different way of, there's a lot of upgrades that work well with the Mandalorians, which is, the interesting part, I think.
In the article, I talk about hero synergies, and the list is like a mile long. Like, every Rebel hero has some synergy with this unit. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Rebel command cards hand out dodge tokens, right? And turns out Mandalorians really, really like dodge tokens for a variety of reasons. I think how you use your tokens, specifically aim tokens on this unit, you have to be kind of careful with it, because like you were alluding to, you've got like 3 different ways to spend an aim token on a Ursa Tristan unit.
Yep.
And making sure you spend it on the right thing, I think, is kind of important. Like, long shot probably comes first, right? Because you're just adding dice to the pool. But I think that, like, if you get a second aim token, like, do you spend it on Pierce or you just spend it on rerolls? Like, it's kind of a DT pool, like a range 4 DT pool with blast, and I mean, it's not that far off it. So I don't know. If DTs had blast, that'd be real good.
Yeah, if they had Pierce, that would also be real good.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, like, seems good. I also think that, like, it's roughly equivalent to like a range 3 full arc shot. It's not that different. It doesn't have a ton of aim tokens to back it up, which I think is the primary difference. But they're yeah, I don't know. I kind of feeding back on what you guys were talking about earlier. We talked about them being range 2, and we've talked about the rockets and stuff. I think it's important to note that there are range 2 units that are effective in this game. That shouldn't be a turnoff. And all of the range 2, I shouldn't say all, but most of the range 2 units that are effective in this game, guess what they are? They're Mandalorians. So, like, I don't let that kind of throw you off on this unit, I think, because I think you, at first glance, you're like, range 2, everybody's playing this range game. They've got jump, their move speed 3, like, they can really get in there.
Yeah, there's like a huge difference when the range 2 is on a courage 1 body with speed 2 and no mobility help at all, versus on a speed 3 body with jump 2 with a red save with surge. Like, there's a huge difference there. So just because fleets are bad, don't think that's universally the case for range 2. The body it's attached to really matters.
Yeah, and doesn't Ursa have like Dauntless?
Yeah, she has Dauntless too.
Yeah,
so good. Like, Dauntless is like, again, it's just like an intangible like part, and it's just gonna be my word for the night, guys. Sorry, but like, Dauntless is like, all right. I know that you guys don't like the Darksaber, or you're not like the biggest fans of it. It's a lot of points to bring Dauntless. I get that. I've always been big on the Darksaber just because of Dauntless. Now, that's a big tax to pay for it. I get that. And it's a whole nother discussion. But my point is that Dauntless is so major because it's on a unit that most likely wants to move and shoot, or shoot and move most of the time. And if they have suppression on them from something from long range, and now all of a sudden they don't have that move, guess what? You still get that move because Ursa is like, nah, we're going for it. And that is like super important to that unit.
Well, there's one important clarification there. is that Dauntless only allows you to do the first thing, not the second thing.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
You have to move first.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
You want to use Dauntless.
Yeah, sorry. Move, shoot. Yeah,
but yeah,
shoot, rather than shoot, move. But yes,
great.
Yeah, it's like a poor man's compel, basically.
It's literally compel on one unit instead of an aura.
Well,
right.
I would argue it's better than compel, and I don't want to go super down this rabbit hole, but often like you don't want to get Krennic into the fray, right? Whereas like keeping Krennic next to the unit that you need to compel is sometimes difficult. Whereas like the units that have Dauntless, like a lot of the time always need it, you know, and like, but you always know you have access to it unless you're like panicking or whatever. But at that point, the ship has sailed. So just a quick thought on that.
Yeah. I mean, sorry to cut you off there, Kyle, but like going back to what you're saying, David, and like what your article alludes to, what are we taking for upgrades? Like, I mean, recon intel basically stapled to any Mandalorian unit, in my opinion. I'm sure you all agree on that. But after that, I think there's like a lot of conversations to be had. Like, it's going to always boil down to whether you want to, like what kind of bid you want to take, and you're going to want to take a bid with Mandalorian lists, in my opinion. Like, if you're bringing Mandalorians, bring a bid. That's just, I'm straight up saying that now. But like, offensive push on Beskad duelist squads almost seems like, I don't want to keep on saying this stapled, but like if you've got the room for it, you're throwing it on there because those aims, like a move, aim, and into a melee situation is like super key to the Beskad's like, efficiency.
Yeah. I mean, O push depends on rhythm, right? And I guess we could back up and say training is like the hotly contested slot because there's a bunch of good options for Mandos. The three that I think are the standouts are offensive push, tenacity, and situational awareness. Right, and you only choose one. Offensive push seems like an obvious choice if you're taking Cassian because you have the free recover. But on the Beskads specifically, there's kind of there's two ways to think about it. One is I'm going to try to end my turn and then jump into melee and swing because this whole conversation is centered around the fact that Mandos do not have charge at any point. They don't have charge. They don't have relentless, which if they did, they'd be completely busted. So if you have to say to myself, okay, am I going to sit in hiding 2 speed 3 moves away and then double move into melee with my target and then on my turn aim and swing? In which case I don't need offensive push, or am I going to jump to where I could be within one move, play a card, win priority, pop uplink potentially if it's like a 1 pip, and then jump into melee with offensive push and then swing. The whole thing is it's in the name of getting to melee with an aim. And that's really the issue is like, where do I slip that third action in? Because I want to get that aim token to get my pierce. I think a lot of folks are thinking the safe play is to go last and double move. That's possibly the safest play. And so offensive push looks a little less attractive. There are also times though where you can use it not for melee. Offensive push you can also tie in with Cassian's free recover. You can tie it in with Leia doing No Time for Sorrows. She'll play No Time for Sorrows. You pop offensive push, gain tactical. You get that little move forward, take your aim from tactical, shoot, and then duck down away, and you shoot with your aim token out. So that's really good for, say, like Tristan, who wants a pierce on his attack and also wants to get to safety. But that's like all the arguments for offensive push, I think, and that one seems to me like the most like blatantly offense oriented pick. Obviously if you have the free recover from Cassian, it doubles in value essentially. And I'm always of the opinion that like if you're going into melee, you'd prefer to pierce than not, because we know from experience as rebels, right? We know that our flamer RTs can bounce off red dice. We know that melee that doesn't pierce bounces off red dice. We knew that from Wookiees and from Tauntauns. So if we can get pierce, we want it because we want to make sure this attack works. the other option is we have tenacity. So if we take wounds, we replace our black white with a red, and that's actually it's not a huge downgrade, right? You have 7 facings on a red dice. On a black white with surge, you get 8 facings, so you really don't take that much of a hit overall in terms of damage, and it makes your Mandalorians kind of sticky. And there is a chance when they run up into engagement that they run away from your medics. So there's a good argument there for tenacity as well.
You could also
go ahead.
Take like it's worth noting that there's the opportunity to increase base damage completely, because like on Clan Ren they all have 2 wounds, right? So like tenacity can trigger without a model being dead. And
right.
I think similarly, I'm not encouraging this, but I think Tristan is not actually a unit leader, right?
No, Tristan is not a unit leader, but Ursa is. So
theoretically you could like take a wound intentionally on Tristan to like trigger tenacity in melee if you wanted to on the normal squad. I'm not condoning it.
Yeah, don't.
but like I'm sure that there is a corner case in some game somewhere where that would be the correct play.
The place where I think it really makes a difference is Clan Ren, actually, because you can take the wound on the generic Mando. And Clan Ren, it's interesting. The base Mandalorian Resistance unit, I don't know if this is a misprint or not. The base Mandalorian Resistance unit throws black white in melee. Clan Ren throws black. They actually don't downgrade. So you can take a tenacity on Clan Ren and get, if you have the full unit, 6 black and a red. No pierce, though, is the problem. So, but that's still pretty damn good. I think that's like better than their shooting, actually. If you look at it, if you leave the pierce out, it's actually better than their shooting to have tenacity in melee with full models.
Yeah, I mean,
there's an interesting argument there.
That's like Operative Luke without the pierce, basically.
Basically, yeah.
You know?
They become another melee beatstick, which is like, wow, these things are tough. And that's something that, if you don't take Darksaber on Sabine, something your list doesn't have. Unless you have like K2 or something. There's multiple styles of lists where you run Cassian and Sabine alongside Mandos, and whether you put K2 in or not, it's whatever. But yeah, they're strong in melee, there's no doubt.
I do think that, generally speaking, especially with Clan Ren, but I think this goes even for the Mandos with the best guy duelist, I think you probably still generally want your primary mode to be ranged attacks. Unless you're like, playing a linebacker role against melee units coming into your lines, simply because they don't, unlike Force users, they don't have any way to get out of melee if they're stuck in one. So they can be tied up by a single dude if they leave a single dude alive, and they don't have any recourse there except to whack him or withdrawal. So, they have similar issues with like consistent melee that Wookiees have, which is basically that once they're stuck in, that's the course you're committed to, and you might even be committed to it with that specific unit. So, now that said, there's lots of great situations where you want to tie up a melee unit, but I definitely don't think you should go into a game with 3 Mandos with best guy duels thinking like, I'm going to just charge these up my opponent's line and start slicing things up.
No, they should definitely shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's actually like what happened in my last Yavin game. Because I'm playing the Mando skew, and I have 2 best guy duelists in Clan Ren with Sabine. And but the thing is that I like what you're saying, Kyle, is that I looked at it as like a tool. Like, rather than going in saying, I'm going to take my best cat duelist and just shove him down my opponent's throat, I'm going to like play the Rebel way. And what I mean by that is that I was like dipping and dunking and like moving around and forcing some weird shots to happen, and then jumping onto buildings and taking shots. And something that came up, David, was like something you kind of brought up was like, not to the exact point that you brought it up, but something similar was I backed my unit up. I took a rocket shot the next turn because I was a little bit further than I thought I was. I no time for sorrows, moved them up. Then I took a full speed 2 move to then shoot the squad that I just hit with rockets to try and finish them off early because I was playing VAPs. And I tapped offensive push there. And rather than, because it's the best GAD school, like I brought the offensive push for the best GAD, but it wasn't about it's not about always getting that pierce. It's just having that tool in your belt. And yeah, I think melee with the best CAD is enticing, but there's going to be games where it's great, and there's going to be games where you need to realize don't do it. One of them being VAPs. Like, I didn't want to charge my opponent and like melee something and then trade down because I didn't melee well. They withdraw, I get shot, I die, or I melee them, they throw a pip, like a 1 pip, disengage, and I don't have HQ uplink, and they start shooting me and I die. Like, I'm trading downward. You just have to, like, no matter what training you put on them or what other upgrades you put on them, you need to just realize the situation that you're in, and whether that's to be ranged, melee, maybe a bit of both. It's just have that, like, that thought process going in with them no matter what, is that they're a tool. They don't need to be a one-dimensional thing. Yes, they might be great in melee. Yes, they're also great at shooting. Do whatever is best for the moment that you're in.
Exactly. I was going to say it works the other way too, right? Because the flip side of this also is, you know, I'm a Biscat duelist and I have Pierce in melee and I have a red save. So if I'm with Surge, right? So I can beat down just about anything one-on-one, you know, bar a Jedi, right? And so you're saying, you know, you look at this board state and then you say, okay, well, there's this far objective or this evaporator that's like lightly defended. Maybe I can run my Biscat over there and murder it because, you know, they're just so good and they have such high dice pool that they can eradicate a unit quickly. You know, so it works both ways. And like you say, it's a tool in your belt, right? You're trying to apply the correct dice pool to the situation mathematically and positionally. That's really what it comes down to. And
I actually think that, like, this is where Mandos shine in a way a lot of other units in this game don't. Most units have a very, like, when you take them in your list, they have a very specific role, right? You take a Rebel Z6 unit, like, you're not charging it into melee pretty much ever intentionally, right? I'm going to take a sniper unit. It's going to shoot things from range 5. Like, that's its job. I'm taking Luke. He's going to, you know, kind of make the board a little messy for my opponent, and then he's going to jump in and start chopping things up. And I think when we talk about Mandalorians, and, you know, you guys are talking about them as tools, I think unlike a lot of other units, each upgrade that you can apply to a Mando squad really allows you to, like, decide which tool you're going to use that game, right? So if I take a full Mando squad or Clan Ren and I give them rockets and I give them O-Push, like, they're very effective at range 4. They're very effective at range 3, range 2, and melee. And I can decide when to use these one-shot tools when I need them. And I think that that's very important because I actually... we can talk about this more when we get to the objective part, but I actually sort of disagree that you need to be blue player and need a bid with these guys. I think they are very good at adapting to situations. In that, like, specifically if you take them with all the things, right? Like, if you don't take them with all the things, I think they're less good at that. Like, I think you need to take the rockets for them to be, like, super versatile. But I think once you hit this critical mass of, I took an offensive push, you know, I've got Tristan, you know, I have my rockets, you know, all of a sudden you've got this range 2 melee unit that can also, like, flex into a range 4, you know, blast that naked rebel trooper carrying a box off at, like, an effective range of range 5 plus, with a speed 3 move and range 4. Like, it gets complicated, right? And you have this unit, like, it's jumping over terrain, you know, like, and I think all of the Mandos, unlike a lot of other units, are very much more than the sum of their parts.
Yeah, they're extremely versatile. You know, for those that follow baseball, you might be familiar with the 5-tool player expression. But it basically means that, you know, like, a player that's good at everything. Now, they might not excel specifically in any one of those things. Like, a 5-tool player may not be, like, the best power hitter in the league. You know, they might not be, like, the very best defender, but they're pretty darn good at all those things. And the Mandos are the same. Like, they're not going to be the very best shooting unit in the game, right? They're not going to be the very best melee unit in the game, but they're good at both of those things, good enough. And you mentioned you know, they can be comfortable as red player. That's definitely true. I'm personally in the bidding camp simply because while they're not really bad at any objectives, they're exceptionally good at a few objectives, and we can talk about those here in a minute. Let's finish rounding out the upgrade discussion real quick. One training upgrade we haven't talked about yet is situational awareness. What do you guys think of situational awareness on both the Resistance and on Clan Ren?
I wanted to ask you, because I didn't include this in my article because I forgot how to calculate it. So I know that Mandalorians have 12 effective wounds because it's 4 total wounds divided by the failure chance. So they have 12 just without nimble, right? So, but then they have, like, if you had like Clan Ren with a dodge all the time, which they're going to have if you position them properly, like, what does their wound count actually go to? Isn't it something huge, like 15? It's some very large number.
Well, so Clan Ren has, even without dodge tokens, has 18 because they have 6 health.
6. That's right.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But there's not like a good way to calculate it, simply because it depends on how many times you're attacked. And the size of the dice pool. Like a dodge token, when you have situational awareness, basically strips 1 dice every single time. So if you get attacked 5 times, it's different than if you get attacked 3 times or 10 times, right? It's not like an attack pool where you can just figure out an average.
Whoa, dude, my mind just got blown. Okay. No, hang on. Just hang on a second. Okay. That means that a portable scanner is better than Sabine's shield. If Sabine takes situational awareness. Sabine's shield is 10 points. A portable scanner is worth 6. The 10-point shield needs to refresh. It cancels 1 result of any type. Nimble situational also cancels 1 result of any type, except you paid 6 points instead of 10. Doesn't need to refresh. Takes an action.
It takes an action. That's the big thing. Like, when does Sabine have an extra action?
But still, like, whoa, holy crap. That means that shield is worthless.
I mean, she could also just dodge. Right.
She could also just dodge, right? But you know what I mean. Like, just for the extra result.
Yeah.
You
want to talk about running her with Leia and putting a portable scanner on Leia.
Hell yeah.
Well, that's actually how I was going to answer the original question. Was I think the situational awareness conversation is actually situational. It depends on who you're taking with the Mandalorians. Clan Ren, I think you put situational on it because most of the time you're bringing Clan Ren with Sabine. I don't think you're really bringing Clan Ren unless you're bringing Sabine. Like, they just kind of go together. That's how they are the most effective, in my opinion, and that's probably how you're going to want to run them. And I think situational makes tons of sense on Clan Ren. Mandalorian squad, it gets a little dicey depending on who you take. If you bring Leia, I can see a case for bringing situational because you're going to be passing them dodges. And like you said, maybe you throw a portable scanner on and this dodge is going everywhere. I'd argue that you'll get value out of situational awareness for the first round or 2. And then it's probably going to go by the wayside because Leia can't keep up with them. And again, offensive push, you're only going to probably use it on 1 turn too. So I think you have to weigh in a lot of different things. And this is just strictly with a Leia build, right? 1, how many times do you think you're going to get dodges from Leia? How many times do you think you're going to use offensive push? Usually just going to be 1. Leia dodge is probably 1 or 2, right? Offensive push is 4 points. Situational awareness is 2 points. Where's my bid at? What do I want it on? I mean, there's always a chance where you mix and match. Maybe one of them keeps situational, one does offensive push. There's all different ways to do it. Now, if you're bringing Cassian, I think you bring offensive push and it's not a debate. Other than that, I mean, there's a debate. Yeah. I get it. But I think with volunteer mission, offensive push value, it goes from a 4-point upgrade to basically it's just basically 2 points, right? Cause you're getting you're getting a double, right? But it's only for 4 points because of volunteer mission giving you the free refresh, which is insane. Situational awareness, yes, it's always going to be there, but how many times are you going to get a dodge from Cassian? And how many times are you going to take the dodge action as a Mandalorian squad? Almost seems like nil. Very rarely am I going to see myself taking a dodge action with the Mandalorian squad.
They have no time to dodge, ever, hardly.
Right.
Yeah. I actually think that the only time you should put situational on a Mando squad is Clan Red. And I think it should be all the time. With that being said, I think that the generic Mando squads are super fragile. I think like they look like they should be super hardy, but they're really like 4-man arc squads, and like when you lose a dude out of an arc squad, like it's a big deal. When you lose a dude out of a Mando squad, I would argue it's probably even bigger deal. But the nice thing that the Mandos have is they have speed 3 and jump 2, so you should pretty much always have them in a place where they can't get shot. Is how I would like have this discussion. Like situational should be irrelevant on everything other than Clan Ren, because they shouldn't be getting shot until you decide to dive, and when you dive, it should be too late for them to shoot you. And I mean, like, don't get me wrong, you're gonna take shots over the course of the game, but I think situational really only shines with nimble. Like if you only use it once, you know, like Clan Ren can like seriously soak some damage. But the other Mandos are like, as soon as they soak damage and take a casualty, you're like, I really wish they didn't get shot at all. You know, I don't know.
One thing we haven't discussed also is, are we glorifying the effect of nimble or the effect of situational? Because situational just covers the hole in nimble, which is crits. So, you know, it's 2 points, right? But at the same time, there comes a point where this is a wasted 2 points, because there was going to be a hit you could have dodged in the attack pool anyway. So sometimes it shuts off because you're getting hit by a big enough dice pool that the distinction between hit and crit stops mattering.
Yeah, I think the value in situational comes from when you're getting shot by ARC troopers and BX, mainly ARC troopers. I mean, because they're surged to critical. You know, they have critical 1, and most of the time, I think an opponent's going to take a shot at your Mando squad at range 5 if you give it to them. So, I mean, the key to that is to just make sure that you position your Mandos correctly, where situational wouldn't even matter against an arc shot, right? Exactly. Which is what speed 3, jump 2 is like. Those are the things that you need to focus on. And we talked about it last week, I think, when we were discussing recover the supplies. Surveying the battlefield with Mandalorians is super important. You got to survey, you know, once like the battlefield's determined, survey where you can go with them and figure out what pieces of terrain that you can utilize to your advantage and such, you know?
I just want to say I agree with what Mike said. If you're and what you're saying, Zach, if you're looking at the board and you're observing the board well enough and you're positioning well enough, nimble won't matter. Or it'll matter it'll matter like so little that offensive push is just such a massive benefit that you won't even care.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like the shorthand that you came up with there, Mike, basically, which is situational to Ren, offensive push to regular, because they have 2 very different roles, if you guys have all alluded to already. Right, Clan Ren is exceptionally tough. They get their dodge tokens for free if you run them with Sabine. Whereas the Mandalorian Resistance is much more like a token scalpel unit, where they do good damage, they're very fast, but any sort of concentrated fire is going to melt them. So, yeah, I like... They're 2 very different roles. If you're taking Clan Ren, you're taking them as like an objective-focused unit, where the point is for them to get shot, or to do things that involve, you know, some degree of danger, like grabbing boxes or going after evaporators or dropping bombs on bombing run or whatever. Because they're so durable, right? Because they get those dodge tokens for free. And I think you're sort of leaning into their role there when you give them situational awareness. Since they have jump, they're going to be in heavy cover a lot, so that shaves off 2 hits, right? And then chances are by the time you shave off 2 hits against a lot of dice pools, all that's left are going to be crits. So you're getting more extra mileage out of that when they're in heavy cover, and because they have jump and such high mobility, they should be in heavy cover most of the time. If you get a Mando squad caught in the open, you've done something horribly wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
So key takeaway before we even get into the strategies is to just like, again, the most important thing with them is moving and jumping. And like Kyle said, getting heavy cover. Like everything else is just gravy. Is positioning them is so important.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also I wanted to touch a little bit. David, you had posed the question Are we over glorifying nimble or situational awareness? And I actually think situational awareness generally is like actually not nearly as good as people think it is. For the most part. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it has a place. It's super cheap, and if you don't need a bid, it's great. But I think that if you're sticking it on anything that's like not a nimble unit, it's kind of questionable. And anything that doesn't take large like multiple shots in a given turn, it's kind of like what am I doing here? You know, it's better spent on like recon intel is much more dependably usable, same points cost. There will be times when you're like, man, I really wish I had situational awareness right now. But I think that those cases, while they feel bad, are much more rare than you think. And oftentimes, when there are only one crit, it's often a sniper strike team that has high velocity. And situational awareness does not get you out of that pickle.
Yeah, I mean in the best case scenario, right? Like if I look at this right, nimble impervious is like semi-analogous to the role of danger sense on paths, except that danger sense can resist piercing high velocity units, but nimble can't because high velocity shuts off the dodge. And it's sort of like, I have a I'm going to say 3-up save. I have a red dice with Surge anyway that has impervious. Some large percentage of the time, 66% of the time, if you roll average, it should be able to handle it. So do I really need that extra little bit of coverage when I could be piercing in melee or range? Hard to say. I just feel like the value of I'm going to use 40k terminology, the value of a piercing wound, mortal wound, is extremely high.
Yeah, no, totally. And I also think that going back to your guys' discussion about Cassian, anything that like recovers stuff for free, it's like you're just like putting investments into like these stock funds that are just paying dividends like all game. You're like, oh, 4 points into O-Push, well, I'm getting like 8 points back, and like
Yep.
I think that whenever you can kind of abuse an exhaustible upgrade to unexhaust it without paying the real cost, is really good. That's why Master of the Force is really good, right? That's the most obvious example. But Veers' recover, like we see people doing things like recovering uplink a gun on DTs or stuff like that. Like once you start recovering multiple things with it, it can kind of get out of hand. So I think you're right. Offensive push is especially if you have access to those free recovers, is just, it's like free money.
I was also thinking like medics, because treat is free, run into a similar situation, right? Where it's like I just had to pay the points for this medic, and I can, if I'm only healing Mandos, I'm investing 18 points of Rebel Medic, and I'm getting like 50 something back, 54 to 60, depending on how heavy I upgraded this Mando unit. I'm getting it back, and I could say that with confidence because I didn't have to spend any additional actions. I just had to pay points to get this thing back because treat is free. And so I think that goes into the whole like dividends thing, right? I'm investing in my Mandos because I know I'm going to get value, and I can put that value into points.
Are you putting anything in their comm slot?
Oh, Uplink. Uplink is so important, I think, for them, especially because you might want to move with them first. And you might have one. In fact, I'm not going to say you might. You will absolutely have 1 pips in lists that do not control them. So Uplink is huge for them. And I think it's no contest. Like I allowed that comms jammer could work, but I think it's that's even more situational.
I don't hate comms jammer.
I don't hate it either. Yeah.
I have like a love-hate relationship with HQ Uplink. I like every time I'm like, man, I really wish I had HQ Uplink here. And then I like build a list and I'm like, man, I don't have 10 points. Like it's just, this isn't going to work out. We're not built for each other. And like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think that if it was me, I'm probably leaving it blank. just because that's just kind of where I tend towards on like units that cost less than 200 points. But I mean, like HQ uplink on your ATST or whatever, I think that's like a different conversation. But I mean, I could see it. I just I think Mandos tend to already have a lot of points invested into upgrades. And I personally would like to err on making them as lean as possible, because they also feel like a unit that, while they are often durable and hard to kill, they're a unit that's probably not going to survive most games.
There is such a thing as overinvesting.
Yeah, and so I don't know. That's kind of where I feel on it.
Kind of like why I boiled it down earlier. I think I had the same sentiment as you, Mike, just in kind of like a different way. But what I alluded to earlier is like, if I'm buying the rockets, I'm most likely not buying HQ uplink. I think I'm doing one or the other, because if you do both, you're investing 18 points into one that you can't use for the rest of the game, and two, one that exhausts and you have to recover to get it back. Like that's a lot of points to tie into an expensive unit already, for quote unquote luxury upgrades, right? So I actually fall on the same path as you, Mike. I probably wouldn't run uplinks, but if I were, I would drop like rockets and throw it on there and just eat the 2-point difference on, like, let's say like a Clan Ren and like a Sabine, It all depends on like the list, right? It kind of circle back on that. Like, what do you think you're going to see the most of? Like, are you going to see like one Mandalorian squad with the 2 snipers? Do you think you're going to see 2 Mandalorians with 1 sniper? Is a Mandalorian skew like 100% competitive? I don't know. I'm running it right now in Yavin, and I kind of think it is. Like, I kind of went into it thinking this seems crazy. I'm running 3 Mandos with Sabine and Leia, and I'm running naked Rebel Troopers, which I if you know me, I hate it. It's kind of the reason why I hated Tauntauns, and I still hate Tauntauns. But that's kind of like just how my mind works with the game. I feel like I'm playing Legion when I'm playing Mandalorians. I don't feel like I'm playing Legion when I'm playing Tauntauns, if that makes any sense. But I'm playing an infantry style game with bodies on the table rather than Tauntauns that are just doing stupid things. I'm sure that a lot of people are going to hate that take, but I don't care. It's how I feel. Like, I hate naked Rebel Troopers, but if it gets me to 10 activations with triple quad Mandos, I will say, again, going into my first game last week playing this list, I was not sure if it was actually like viable, quote unquote, competitively. After playing it, it 100% is. So like, there's so many different ways you can go. Like 1 Mando, 2 Mando, 3 Mandos, so many different ways.
Blue Mando,
I do think
red Mando.
yeah. Paint them different ways: blue, yellow, red.
Oh,
like
there's schemes, the paint schemes.
Like we keep on going to it, but there's just like they're like the literal like Legion Swiss Army knife. Like it just has like everything you have could be there. I think it's awesome for the Rebel faction, and I think you're going to see Mandalorians in lists for a long time.
What sort of battle cards are you prioritizing when you're building a Mando list?
Recover the supplies.
So ironically, David, without knowing it, put every card that I have in my deck on the objective cards, which, if I remember correctly, is recover the supplies, bombing run, moisture evaporators, and then I want to say it was probably breakthrough if I had to take a guess.
Yeah, breakthrough.
Right. Now let me look at your conditions. Supply drop rapid also in my deck. Hemmed in, danger close, advanced positions all in my deck. I don't have disarray just because I have one. I have Leia. I don't know. I'm disarray. I get it. But the reason why, and this is to kind of go back to what Mike was going to, the reason why I like being blue is because I can stack the deck to everything that I like. I keep alluding to my Yavin game. My battle card situation in Yavin was ridiculous. Like, it didn't feel right. I got danger close, VAPs, and limited viz.
Oh,
with
nice.
quad Mandos. And that's because the battle deck was straight up skewed that my opponent really had no options other than what the game got. I forced a limited viz, and he had the options of either playing Recover the Supplies, Bombing Run, or Motion Evaporators. So what do you choose out of all that? Like, he went for Motion Evaporators, which I get, because if he goes up on points, he can kind of retreat and he forces me to come to him, right? Because I was blue. But if you can get a battle deck with a Mandalorian list that skews towards those Mandalorians, it's going to be tough to beat them when you don't have standby sharing. Just to throw that out there. I mean, not to throw salt on everything.
We got so far.
Not to throw salt on it. Standby sharing changes it. Standby sharing, mark the time of death of the podcast there.
Yeah.
Standby sharing changes that math a little bit, but for the most part, you can kind of control the game at turn 0, which is one of the most important parts of the game.
Oh yes, undoubtedly. And I remember vaguely hearing some complaining about how Tauntauns did this too. It's like, why do Rebels get a unit that's good at all 4 objectives? I remember hearing some past murmuring about that. But yeah, here we have again a unit that actually is really good at 4 objectives. And they're sort of similar to Tauns as well. Tauns were good. We're not strictly good at recover, but they were good enough at recover where they could just like do an end run around your opponent's army and kill your back objective grabbers, and then you would just win a recover game on a very low score. I mean, I don't think I ever saw a recover game go 2-0 before Tauntauns. Like, that's very rare.
Yeah. No, I agree. I actually think that this is going to sound like blasphemy, but I actually think Mandalorians have a better objective deck than Tauntauns. Like, Tauntauns often had the reason they were good was because they just, like, smashed your opponent in the mouth, and, like, they hit them hard enough that, like, they couldn't get back up, right? Whereas Mandalorians are, like, actually good at the objectives. You know, Tauntauns are not good at recover the supplies. They just smash your opponent so that they can't be, right? Yep. And I think
Tauntauns make your opponent bad at objectives.
Yes, that's exactly. I mean, like that's kind of what it comes down to. And whereas I think Mandalorians are actually like very proactive at achieving objective results, right? They're great at breakthrough because they do the thing. They're great at bombing run. They're also, like, when they do those things, they're much easier to hide. You know, like, you're like, oh, I broke through, and now I'm gonna hide behind this building. You can't do that with Tauntauns. Like, Tauntauns can't hide. That's not a thing they can do, right?
Yeah.
Tauns can't pick up boxes. So, I mean, I think that, like, on the whole, Tauns maybe work better with the whole army generally. But I think that, like, if I were to take one Tauntaun unit and one Mandalorian unit, and if you ask me, like, which one was better at doing it objectives, I would universally always say this Mandalorian unit is way better at achieving, and, like, if I need somebody to go pick up that box, like, the Tauntaun unit, it doesn't help me at all, right? Which I think lends to their versatility, like we were talking about before.
I was also going to say, when you're facing down in the matchup, if you're facing down Mandos, especially triple Mandos, like, wave goodbye to one of your Tauntaun units, because if they could even see, like, a claw, they're going to get smacked with 12 blast reds, and you don't survive that mathematically. At least I don't think. No,
and I also think that you guys brought up standby Sharon, so I'm going to go there for a second. Mandalorians can actually interact with their opponent at a range greater than range 3, right? Like, we've talked a lot about rockets, but what we have not talked about is that, like, they can shoot a unit with a standby token and not get shot back at range 4. Like, that is a big deal. And I know that it you're like, oh, they can only do it one time, but, like, sometimes that's all it takes, Yeah. And if you've got a couple units with rockets, like, I think it's very different. Like, the Rebel Special Forces slot outside of snipers, like, it's all very short range, right? You've got Wookiees, you've got Tauntauns, you've got Mandos, in, like, the rockets are the thing that makes them, like, interactable on that axis. And I think that that's actually very important. to like how they speak to the meta in that regard. Like there's some play there.
How could you forget about Pathfinders? Come on.
Whew. Yeah, you're right. Pathfinders are bad. I don't know what to tell you.
What? No.
You know, not just the like something that was in the Discord the other day. Someone was like, "Well, 8 white dice at range 3 is really good," and I knew they were discussing droids. I knew they were discussing. I can't think of the word right now.
BX droids.
BX droids. Yeah, thank you. I knew they were discussing BX droids, not Pathfinders, and I was like, "Yeah, Pathfinders would like a word." Because sharpshooter is like a big deal in that dice pool. Because Kyle, I think I've seen you actually on stream throw a complete whiff with BX droids. If I believe
100%.
yeah, against LJ in that game.
I was
there. So yeah, like you feel like they're quality dice, but they're still white dice even when they surge. But not to go on to too big of a tangent. So yeah, Pathfinders, yeah.
Well,
so do these?
I just want to talk to that for 1 second.
Okay.
So I think that one of the reasons that the Pathfinders don't fit that role very well is that unlike Tauntauns, Wookiees, and Mandalorians, they are not very good at defending themselves, right? Like all of those the other 3 units in that list are either have a ton of wounds or super good saves or access to like dodge token shenanigans. Pathfinders have none of that, and they're incentivized to be like under the gun with infiltrate. Like infiltrate's a very good keyword, but like, as I'm sure a lot of people have like seen with Imperial Special Forces, like infiltrate's very different when you've got red surging defense as opposed to white saves, right? Like it's like, oh, I've got 3 up saves. Infiltrating is actually a lot safer than it used to be. And I think that's kind of where that unit falls down in contrast to Mandalorians. I just want to touch on that quickly.
And Danger Sense is notionally a great defensive keyword, but only like the 3rd time that you get shot. And usually by the time that happens, they're just dead.
Totally.
Right?
Like yeah. if Mandalorians had Danger Sense, like great, right? Like that would be fantastic. But
that's my volunteer mission with them is so amazing.
Right. And but like Pathfinders never want to get shot once. Like as soon as they start losing models, you're like, yeah, these guys are just gonna sit back here and do nothing.
Well, and like completely like pile on them, but the issue that started this was the quality of attack dice too, right? So like while they melt on defense, the thing about Mandos, Wookiees, and Tauntauns, right, is the fact that if they are in a precarious situation and they need to like make an attack that's worthwhile, they have the quality dice to do that. Pathfinders don't have the quality of dice to do that on offense. So they're like in a weird spot where they want to do what Mandalorians do, but they can't do it, if that makes any sense.
Well, they can't do it consistently, right? Like every time you roll an attack with a Pathfinder squad, you're straight up like in the casino, just like jamming on the machine. You're just hoping, right? And you're at the casino, like the house is gonna win, right? That's just how this works. Whereas like Mandalorian Resistance, you're like, oh, I have 4 red dice. Like these don't miss, or at least they miss like such like small amount of the time that like if you get boned, like you just got super unlucky. Sorry, dude.
You go from playing the penny slots to playing third base at the blackjack table, basically.
Well, you're at the blackjack table with like a card counter in your ear with Mandalorian Resistance, right? You're like I always get 3 or 4 hits if I have an aim token. Like I always get 4 hits, right?
This analogy only halfway works. Like you are at the slot machine, but you're never going to play the slot machine long term because that's obviously a losing proposition. You're trying to play the slot machine for the 5 spins, hoping that one of them is the jackpot. Right, you're never playing the slot machine long term because you're basically saying I'll give you $100 and you'll give me 90 back or whatever, because that's what long term slot playing is. That's just mandated by law, right? The house can't take more than a certain percentage of money from you. Anyway, this became a gambling podcast suddenly.
Yeah, to get us back on topic a little bit.
Sorry.
Do any of these objective choices change if instead of taking like a triple Mando skew, you're just running, Sabine, Clan Ren, and then like 2 snipers?
That's what I do.
I point blank will say that I think that Rebel lists are in a weird spot with objectives. And I think that those 4 objectives are what you're going to be taking with a lot of Rebel lists regardless. Like, I don't think you want key positions. I don't think you want hostage exchange ever. I don't think you shouldn't.
No. I'm here to make the case for the Rebel hostage.
Oh,
exchange.
no.
Yep, no, it's happening.
This is not
It is
for
happening. No.
Oh,
So
my.
hear me out here for a second, okay? We've been talking about Mandalorians and flexibility and versatility, okay? You have the ability to reach out and touch a unit at basically range 6 with these Mandalorian Resistance squads, right? Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay, great. Continuing. So
I know where you're going with this. I don't like it.
Okay, that's fair. You are entitled to your opinion. So you actually have a really good opportunity to like chase units at range down. Like if you've got 3 Mandalorian units with rockets, like you can alpha a hostage unit off the board, like in a late turn in a place where your opponent can't do much about it. I'm not gonna say that it's like better than recover the supplies, but I do think that there's more of a conversation there than I think hostage exchange is bad. And I think, do you want it against clones? Like, obviously you don't want to take hostage exchange against clones, right?
And I think that's enough to not bring it in your deck.
Okay, wait. So here's a question: does hostage limit your max speed to 1, or does it reduce your maximum speed by 1?
It reduces your speed to 1.
To 1 or by 1?
I'd have to read the card.
That's a good question.
If it's by 1, then I see an argument for Mandos on.
Well, hold on. You're also now discussing the fact that if your Mandalorians are carrying your hostage squad is dead, which usually happens when you're a Rebel player because they melt when holding the hostage.
Or they're still in the opponent's one.
That's also fair.
Or they're stealing the opponent's one. I get that. But you're putting your Mandalorians in a position that I don't think is ideal for them. I get where Mike is going with it. But you're talking about putting them. You're putting them into a position that they could get stuck in. And you think, listen, you might not get out. They don't have force push. Like, it's a completely different story. If they had a way to get out of melee,
I'm with you.
I think it'd be a different story.
I'm not saying have your Mandalorians carry the hostage most times, though. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think there's an interesting conversation for Clan Ren to be like is it just any trooper unit? I'm having
just core units.
It's just
got to be a core unit.
The units that start with it, yeah.
So that's not a thing, but I do think
too bad you can't have Ursula like execute your hostage carrier and then just take the hostage.
Great.
I would probably bring a Mark II.
I got it.
And kill the Mark II and do it.
You take Sabine and have her grapple line the enemy hostage carrier on turn 2.
Also, don't hate that.
Freeze them in place.
You guys are putting them in spots they don't
know.
want to be in. We've just spent this entire podcast talking about how they want to dip, dunk, dive around the board, stay behind terrain.
Duck, dive, dodge.
Yeah, duck, dive, dodge. And you guys are
dunk.
basically saying, here, I'm going to throw Sabine out here in the middle, grapple line something, to then have Clan Ren come up, shoot them, and then take the hostage, while being basically in the heart of your opponent's army, because they're going to realize what the hell's going on, and they're going to want to shoot you in the face.
All I'm saying is that I don't think it's nearly as black and white as you're making it out to be. I actually think that I would rather play like hostage exchange as like a triple Mando skew than like, I don't know, intercept or like key positions.
Well, that's the thing. They're not in the deck.
But I mean, like, that's fair, but I'm also talking like generally, like, you're not always going to be a blue player. And I think there are choices there. But I do think that I don't hate hostage in the blue deck as like the 4th.
Well, to go back to what I was prefacing before we went down this rabbit hole, was that the cards that I would cut, and this is in terms of being blue, the cards that I would cut with Mandalorians, probably 9 out of 10, whether it's a skew or 1 or 2, okay? is KP, hostage, and intercept. You don't want to play those 3 cards if you can avoid them, in my opinion, with Mandalorian lists. You want to play recover, you want to play breakthrough, you want to play bombing run, and you want to play sabotage and moisture evaporators whenever you can. And then to go back to your point, I agree that it's fine to be red with Mandalorians because most of the time your opponent's going to have sabotage and moisture evaporators in their deck. And one of the best things you can do that we haven't discussed, well, we have it in a couple different ways, but one of the best you can do is go after a back VAP with your Mandalorians, no matter which one it is, Beskad or Clan Ren. They are so good at getting to the back VAP as a red player. So I do agree there are situations where being red's fine as Mandos. But I do think you want to be blue.
Do you understand that hostage exchange and sabotage and moisture evaporators are basically the same objective?
Yes, but you have more control over the VAPs than you do the hostage because on VAPs, you can hide your rebel troopers. On hostage exchange, they're going to die. They are literally going to be blasted off the table, and you have no control over that. Okay. Now, let's say you're also playing a medic skew list with your Mandalorians, right? You're now putting your Rebel Trooper squad. It's not a naked Rebel Trooper squad anymore. It's got an extra 18 points attached to it. So now you're starting at a 58-point handicap because you know they're going to die. Or they're most likely going to die, I should say.
They're not the same objective.
They're not. That was maybe a little bit of an oversimplification.
I knew what you were getting at. It's fine. But I know what you're saying.
Both of those objectives are determined by kill points.
They tie
fair.
very
That's fair.
often.
Which was my point behind this.
Yes,
and Zach, I'm sorry, you got very animated there. I didn't mean to angry you. If you
Oh no. I knew what your point was, but I wanted to seize the moment and just get on you when I could.
Yeah, I wanted to point out that I actually going back to the hostage exchange thing. You don't have to kill the hostage exchange carrier with the rockets. It could be any unit, really. And as long as your Mandos are able to pull back, you're okay. As
someone that just played hostage exchange against David in our, I'm drawing campaign. I'm drawing blanks tonight. I have dad brain. I didn't really sleep that much this weekend. Okay. In our campaign, we just played hostage exchange. I killed everything in David's list except for the ATSD, Veers, and his hostage carrier. Okay. Do you know what that means? I lost the game. You know why? Because I couldn't go pick up the freaking hostage on my side because I have rebel troopers carrying that hostage. They died. Yeah. Listen, here's going. We're off on a tangent here. Okay. Listen, this is exactly what happened in this campaign. Okay. And you're going to see the video. We're going to post it soon, right? I have the hostage. I on round 1, I say to David, these guys are going to freaking die. So I'm going to move once and I'm going to shoot you in the face instead of double moving because no matter what, they're going to die. So spoiler, yes, all of that I'm telling you right now, but just Mike's really, you're getting me boiled up here.
I know. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it thoroughly.
Hot. I'm sweating. I probably look red. Hostage for rebels is bad.
No, I was gonna say it's like they hostage exchange is the same as evaporator, except you have the honor and the privilege of selecting one core unit to get completely murdered by clones or juiced up shores.
Here's a good question. Hold on. Here's a really good question, David. If that game was Sab the Moisture Evaporators,
yes,
would you have won that game?
Unlikely.
Because my Mandos again, I'm throwing all sorts of spoilers here. My Mandos that I rapid reinforced would have been able to pressure Evaporator way better than they pressured your hostage exchange carrier.
I probably would have had to focus the ST on them way sooner instead of just killing core.
The key difference,
take, Mike, bad hot take.
I mean, I still think unless you're playing clones, you're just cutting hostage, straight up.
I agree.
Exactly.
To further go down this rabbit hole, and then we should close this rabbit hole out and move on. The primary difference, yes, hostage and VAPs both often go to kill points, but the primary difference between the two of them is that on VAPs, your objectives are much safer than on hostage. Because hostage, both players' objectives start out in the middle of the table, so it plays out like a brawl over the middle. Whereas you can be much cagier on VAPs because you essentially have the whole map to play kill points with.
No doubt.
And ideally, you set up your objectives blind, right? Or you set them up so that your opponent is blind to them.
Right.
No doubt. It was an oversimplification. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was a
All
fun
right.
oversimplification.
He bought into the
Here's the thing. Sometimes it is convenient to ignore certain truths in order to prove a point. That was really all I was doing. It didn't work out. Sometimes that backfires.
Yeah.
It is
He
what
bought
it
into
is.
you bought into the take. You ran with it. It's fine. It's
Yeah,
fine.
that's it. We're good.
All right, let's. You guys got any more thoughts on Mandos?
They're real
Take-
good. Buy 3 boxes.
Take
Do it.
medics.
Yeah,
Take
that
medics.
Two
that
medics.
point is so important. Like, medics are really good generically in that they can bring back heavy weapons and stuff. If you are taking Mandalorians and you do not have a medic in your list, you're doing it wrong. That's a hot take I will stand behind.
I don't know
Well,
why people stop taking medics.
don't
Medics
know
are
either.
great.
yeah.
I know. I'm gonna say it again. They stopped taking medics because rebel troopers that they could go in got killed instantaneously by tauntauns.
Well,
All our
and
stuff
we
just dies to one attack, man. We don't have the chance to bring it back.
Pretty
and
much.
like the quote unquote net listing turned into like a min max situation where you're minimizing your weaker squads to maximize your better units, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily min maxing in the sense of, well, I'm gonna do a 16 act rebel list. No, what I mean by min maxing is you minimize your rebel troopers to maximize your tauntauns, which gets you to 12 activations or something crazy like that, right? Which is where you had no room for the medics, or your medics were never going to be close to your tauntauns anyways. Whereas the rebel meta is shifting to a mobile army, and this goes back to something I said earlier, a mobile army, but it's freaking infantry, so you can kind of control what they do and where they're near and how you handle them.
They can
where
go get hostages.
Where tauntauns literally have to are just a linear thing. They just charge the line, and that's, I think that's why medics kind of shifted out, which I still think was a little crazy because I think medics on snipers, especially in tauntaun lists, you want your snipers to stay up. So I actually would have been, if I played tauntaun, I would have been in the mindset of playing 11 acts or 10 acts where I'm beefing up my snipers or my tauntauns, or probably more in the 11 act rather than 10.
Okay,
But
to be fair, there were 2 Taun Luke Sabines with 9 activations that ran double medic
well, that's disgusting too. Yeah,
that
of
had
course.
winning
Right.
records in
Yeah.
majors.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there.
I also think that the conversation is that rebel lists have been pretty heavy on the bid front lately. It's really hard to fit a medic in your list if you're trying to include a substantial bid. If you're trying to include an 8+ bid, it gets a lot more difficult to find the points for a medic.
The medic is the first thing you cut if you need a bid, and then you add points somewhere else is what you end up doing basically.
Yeah, I feel like people need to be taking them more, especially now that Mandos are a thing. And I don't just mean that for Rebels. I think Empire players should be taking medics too.
This is going to be the return of the medic for sure.
We'll see. All right. So at some point, Mike and I are going to play a game this week with our campaign thingy. We won't spoil the result of Zach and David's game, but let's just say that the Rebels have some ground to defend here on the next move. So
you guys are still,
I think we're
doing
still
pretty
up.
well for yourself.
Yeah, we're still up. But Vader is attacking
Bespin.
And Bespin has no rebel characters on it, so it's going to be Vader versus a generic officer. And I'm going to be in the position of running a rebel list with no unique characters again.
Vader smash.
It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be Vader running into 15 activations of whatever. I'm sure.
Vader
I'm
versus
gonna show up to
Cannonball,
this game, and it's gonna be 3 FG turrets, 3 snipers, 6 naked rebel troopers, and Luke, Obi-Wan, Dooku, and a bunch of other stuff. I'm sure it'll be great.
Nope, generic officer and whatever we can fit in there.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, Mike, I don't know if you'll end up showing it in the video or we'll probably show it, at some point. But the one thing that Kyle and I are doing is defending our areas well to keep you Imperial scum out of there. So, but Kyle, this is a tough one. Good luck.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting because I think we're starting to see areas of the map bleed out a little bit. We've only lost a couple armies, but as soon as a couple more armies die, I think we're gonna start seeing large swaths of the map kind of become easily obtainable. and it'll be interesting to see how we navigate that. Because if you lose like 4 games in a row, you not only have lost 4 games and potentially some planets, you've lost 4 things on the board that can hold positions, right?
Yep.
Which that might be something we have to revisit. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it's more about the trooper dudes than the actual planets themselves.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally,
the planets
totally.
are important for positional stuff, but
Yeah, every time you lose a trooper, it I think we each side only had 18 to start with, I think, and I think
yep,
we're down to 17, and you guys are down to what, 16 at this point. So
that sounds right.
yeah. And if it slides even farther, there might be tough.
Yeah, we got to get some of our. There's a lot of rebel characters that are kind of shoved in the back by like Yavin, including Luke and Cassian. So we've been fighting battles with like generic officers and Han Solo, and we need to get Luke and Cassian in on the mix.
We're being patient. We're just being patient.
There you go. All right. Well, any other plugs? Anything else, gentlemen?
That should probably that video is done. It should go live sometime this week. I've just kind of been waiting for a day to flip it live, so that will be up sometime this week. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Mike.
I'm David.
I'm Zach, and you should cut hostage exchange if you're a rebel player.
And R2D2 sucks.
All right. Stay fresh, cheese bags.